So, thank you very much. Thanks, Fredrik, for organizing this. Thank you for everybody for being here. It's great to see so many of you and from so many different countries that you've taken the time to come to Iceland, and you're all here for the same purpose, which is to explore the vast variety of happy hour product offerings in the infamous Reykjavik Monday evening nightlife. And since we are pretty much the only session keeping you away from that entertainment, we have a challenge ahead of us. So I will be brief, and I will save you some time because I saw that some of you were Googling in the break. You were Googling basically the most local Icelandic beverage. And I can save you the time. You just go to the bartender and ask for brennivín, and then you don't need to ask for anything more the whole evening. However, let's go to the questions that we have to answer in our discussion today. And basically, the first question is, how can you market a commodity in a competitive market? And in my previous job as CEO of Iceland's biggest fuel and retail company, this was one of my main concerns for a year. It was interesting to see the presentation from Mike Neubauer this morning, looking at the parallels between the Shell marketing of fuel versus electricity, because there are definitely some commonalities. And if we look at the options you have in general when you're marketing a commodity, what can you do? Should you differentiate? In fuel, that's very difficult. You have limited possibilities to differentiate because the product is standardized, and pretty much the same goes for electricity. Should you compete on price? Well, everybody competes on price in one way or the other, but most people don't want to compete on price. That's pretty much what you do if you have difficulties competing on something else. Now, should you advertise? Well, most companies do anyway, and that's probably what you have to do also anyway, and social media brings in a completely added dimension into that discussion. But the question, of course, will be how long that holds in the long term. To create a real loyalty from your customer, to break away from what was called earlier this morning the commodity death trap, you have to build some kind of a relationship with the customer. And but how do you build that relationship? I want to argue that one key approach to build a relationship with the customers and the buyers of electricity, and thus to earn their loyalty, is through shared information. I think the energy company can build a relationship with its customers through shared information. And by sharing information, I mean information about the energy usage that the customer and the user is actually using. So the energy usage and the behavior of the customer's electrical system. And together, the energy company and the user can thus use that information to increase the efficiency of the electrical system and the stability of the electrical system on the user side. However, to be useful, that information, the data that they are exchanging, needs to be granular. It has to be split down to branch level, and it has to be accessible in real time and online. So here is an example of the eTactica system, and this is basically what happens if you unleash engineers to do a marketing presentation. They always have to have at least one scheme drawing in their stack, and this is the only one I'm going to show you today. So bear with me. Here is basically this is basically a scheme of the eTactica system. You have on the bottom left, it's a power meter that measures basically the total power going into a certain location. But here on the top, you have the current meter, which basically measures how much electricity is going into each branch or basically into each device. And then there's a gateway that collects all the signals and transmits the information into the software that we operate on the cloud, and that gives the customer then overview of what's going in their electrical system, and that is basically the interface that the customer can see on his or her browser or tablet or smartphone or wherever. And so the customer can basically see the information, use that information as a feedback, how their approach to basically increase the efficiency of the system and to predict failures and so on is working, and that is basically the key to improving the operations. So basically the key benefits to the user of the system is they can use the system to increase the efficiency. They can see if something is starting to go wrong, so they can use that to prevent failures. And they can use it to basically verify that they are fulfilling the requirements that the government is putting on them. And we have big customers here in Iceland that are using this system already. Many of them you know. Most of you arrived through the airport at Keflavik, which is using our system. You know brand names like IKEA and Toyota. And tomorrow night you're going to the Blue Lagoon. All of these companies are taking advantage of this approach. However, the energy companies they can benefit from supplying this kind of information sharing with their customers, but on top of that, they can use that information sharing basically to influence the usage patterns of their customers. They can use it to tailor pricing schemes and putting up incentive systems, basically in order to work with the customers and basically increasing the loyalty of the customers with the energy company. And actually there have been two recent acquisitions in the US where energy companies have acquired companies that are creating systems like ours that are offering such information. The ultimate goal, therefore, and we saw basically this morning there was a lot of discussion that you had to have some meaningful dialogue with the customer. And what can be more meaningful in the dialogue than actual information about what's happening in the business interactions, how the usage is happening. So that's basically the holy grail. That is the bond with the customer that the energy company can create. And by adding value to the user and adding meaning to the dialogue between the energy company and the user. And that bond should be at least as strong, if not stronger, as the bond that the bartender will have created with you when you finally call it a day and finalize your night shift tonight. Thank you.